Hello, everyone, and welcome to this eTwinning webinar offered by the European School Education Platform. Today's webinar is organized in collaboration within the eTwinning feature group Inclusive Education. And this feature group is the feature group under the spotlight throughout the month of July in alignment with our monthly topic, Education Without Gender Stereotypes. So we invite you to give a look at all the resources that we are publishing throughout the month on our platform about this very important topic and to join the group Inclusive Education, and I will post the link in the chat in a second so you will have all the information there and you will be able to join, where you can find a lot of resources, activities, events such as this one to explore further the topic of education without gender stereotype. We have two speakers today with us. We have Marie-Louise Peterson, who will give you a presentation about this topic and how to integrate it in the classroom. And we have the moderator of the Inclusive Education feature group, Cecilia Cantinzano, and you will very soon hear directly from her about all the ongoing and upcoming activities taking place in this group. Before I leave the floor to Cecilia and then to Marie-Louise, I'd just like to remind you that this session, as you can see, is recorded, and the recording will be published on the official YouTube channel of the European School Education Platform and also uploaded in the dedicated page on the platform itself. And also, in that case, the information will be posted in a minute in the chat. So you will be able to catch up with the recording, rewatch it, or share it with colleagues who couldn't take part in today's event. And I'll also encourage you to use the chat in case you have any questions or in case you need any technical supports. I'll be there monitoring it, and also our speakers will give a look in case there are questions relevant to the topics. And now it's time we go to the heart of this webinar, and I'll leave the floor to Cecilia, who will tell you something more about the Inclusive Education feature group and why you should join it. Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessia. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, Gender, Know How to Set Your Students Free. As part of our July theme, Education Without Gender Stereotypes, we are excited to bring you this important session, and thank you very much for joining us. The webinar will introduce practical and thoughtful ideas that teachers can implement to challenge gender stereotypes in their classroom. These include using literature to foster empathy, encouraging boys and girls to engage and share activities, and even participating in a video competition aimed at raising awareness about sexism. We'll also address a particular relevant issue, how to open up meaningful conversations with boys who may feel that gender equality efforts have gone too far, an experience that some educators are increasingly reporting. Later in the session, you will also get a brief introduction to teaching materials from European project Teach Evidence, which inspired the eTwinning mini project Love and Consent as a great example of how these ideas can be put into action. Before we begin, a quick reminder, at the end of the webinar, we invite you to share any thoughts, experiences, or questions related to tackling gender stereotypes in education and join the Inclusive Education feature group for longer activities on the forum and twin boards. We'd also like to invite you to join our July scavenger hunt designed for you to explore and reflect on the gender stereotypes present in your schools and consider practical ways to challenge them. So it's a great opportunity to think critically, collaborate with others, and share your insights with the eTwinning community. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Marie-Louise Peterson, who is a teacher from Denmark with more than 30 years of experience working on gender issues in education. She holds a supplementary degree in gender studies and has been an eTwinning ambassador since 2014. In 2017, she founded the eTwinning group Gender Know How to Stop Stereotypes, which remained a feature group until 2024. During that time, she moderated 17 webinars with experts and researchers on gender and education, consistently promoting inclusive and equitable practices across schools. So Marie-Louise, thank you very much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Cecilia, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everyone. I had some technical issues, so in order to show my PowerPoint, I will share my screen. So I hope it works.
Yeah, Marie-Louise, feel free to share your screen. I will just directly take over my screen.
Yeah.
So you can just click on share.
Okay, I'll just see. Yes, can you see my screen now?
Not yet. Okay, now it's loading, and I think in a second we will. Perfect. So we can see your slides.
Okay. So I'll just put this thing away.
Yeah, you can also put in full screen if you are perfect. Now it's great.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yes, I'll just jump into the agenda, which Cecilia actually already said. So or part of it. So these are the things that I'm going to talk about. Yeah, so I think I'll just jump into it immediately. So a little bit about me. I'm a teacher and work in Denmark, and lately I've been working in this thing called a youth school in Denmark, where we have 10th grade center, and 10th grades are in between regular school and secondary education. It's like an extra year you can take. And during that year, those last 2 years, our school participated in the Teach X Evidence project, which I will speak about at the end. So just to give you an idea of the different expert talks you can see here, I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see most of them are in English, but a few of them are in French, and I could see at least one of you are from France, from the participants. And most of these talks are recorded. So if you think, I like to watch this one, then you're welcome to contact me. So actually, the first one from France is it means the real equality between boys and girls in the school playground. I will talk a little bit about that. And also the one on the bottom, how to provide good sexuality education. I'll just give a few of the best advice from their talk. And then the second one, Buzon contre le sexisme, is that this is French video contest that I'd like to make some promotion about. And then the bottom one, Jouer en mixité. It's about playing together, and this is from the French footballer who also did some things for boys and girls to play more equally together. And then the fourth one, Invisible Women, Gender Bias in the School Literature. This is the one I'll also say a little bit about in the talk. So as you can see, these are all topics related to gender and related to education. So to begin with, I think the gender bias in the literature curriculum is very interesting, because this is a screenshot from when Rachel Fenn from the UK did this talk. And each one who were engaged or participated in this talk, they shared that in their countries there is this bias too, and the bias is that it's mainly male protagonists. So the main character of the books that the students read are a male character, so it's a boy or a man. And as it says here on the top right, half of the female authors had a male protagonist. They think they have to in order to get their books published. So even when they had a female writer, often the protagonist was or is a boy or a man. And as it says below, there is a belief system remaining that boys will only read books if the protagonist is a male, even though that's not true. So according to Rachel Fenn, boys will actually are interested in the lives of women and girls, but there is this sort of myth that they would only read books about themselves. And I think also that as it says on the screen of this her PowerPoint, the last one, it says women are portrayed as victims or as monsters. So they are often not really just a regular person with a regular life. And if they are often victims. So the first one I already said, that many teachers say they have to choose a book with male protagonists, and otherwise boys won't read it. And then what she also said, an interesting point, that if the idea that boys will only read if it's about themselves, then the girls, they don't get to read about themselves. And the last quote, boys shouldn't be expected to be interested in girls and their lives and experiences. And I think this is also an interesting point, that there is this idea in many cultures. Of course, I don't know in all where you come from, all participants, but this idea that if we get more empathy when we know the people we are together with. So if boys, men, that was her point when she did the speech, if they learn more about the lives and the perspectives of women, then they have more empathy, and there's perhaps maybe less violence against women and these very stereotypical ideas about women. So her points was that it's a really responsibility in the school tackling misogyny, so this hate against women, and also that teachers, she advised teachers to try and to reach out, and so that they think more broad when they make up the curriculum in the choice of literature. And of course, I know from country to country it can be different how fixed you have to be. How do you say? You have to have the certain curriculum. But at least in my country, you can actually choose quite freely. There are some authors you must read, and those are about 80% of them are male. But still, you can also choose others to read. So I think this was a very interesting point, this thing about literature, because that's really how we get to have the thoughts and the feelings of another person. So if we want boys and men to learn more about women's life, then literature is really a good way to start. Then, as I said, I will take the best points from, this is from the Danish Family Planning Association. It's a big organization that provides a lot of the materials that are used in the schools in Denmark for sexuality education. And I think what their good point is that it should, when we have these kind of courses or teaching in school, that it should not be instructive or making conclusions, but looking to the right, that the teacher should be more a facilitator or a partner in a dialogue, and sort of more engaging the students. And then also when having sexuality education, where often here you can have, this is the way time when you can talk about gender stereotype with the students, then they make this, they advise the teachers to make a social contract to create a more secure learning environment. And this is a thing that you can maybe write on the board when you start the education. So for instance, I just read here, no private talk. So it's not about sharing the private issues from your own life or the student's life. It's not about sharing personal experience. There's an anonymity that's guaranteed. And another thing, what pupils say during the lesson stays there. It's a closed room, so you don't sort of go out and then say, oh yeah, and then he and she said this and that. And then the thing about languages, that having respect and recognition of people's differences, and having non-discriminating language, and having no homo or bi or transphobia. And then also having the clear agreements that all participants know about content and form of the session. So it's very clear especially also about the content. And participants are taking active part in the session, but they have a possibility to non-participant. They call it a backdoor. So sometimes an issue can be a little bit too much, and you can't force the students to say something, but you can still have them be part of the session. Yeah. So I think these are just some of the good advice on from having when having talks, sexuality education issues with the students. And this organization has a tradition, has a long history of providing materials, as I think since the 1970s, when it became mandatory in the Danish schools. Yeah, then I'll say a little bit about this video contest called Buisson contre le sexisme, and this is from this platform called Mathilde Education that I'm sure the French teachers who are here probably know. And each year they have this, though most of this is in French, then they each year have a video contest called Buisson contre le sexisme. This is actually a screenshot from one of the pupils' videos, and it's about catcalling. You know, when boys they whistle or call out girls. So I think it's really interesting to see these pupils engage in the video, showing these stories about or that are about tackling sexism. Yeah, this is another one from the pupils' video. And this is about domestic violence of all the women being killed or in their own home by partners or ex-partners, which is also a really tough subject, but a necessary one. Yeah, and even though you're not a French teacher, you can actually also do it as in English. I've seen the videos in Spanish too, and then with subtitles. So the students from 3 to 26 years old can participate, and the video can be anything from a couple of minutes until maximum 6 minutes and 59 seconds. And you can pre-register for the next school year in September 2025, and then the deadline for registration is in December. And then the contest runs from September and March, and then March is the deadline for 2026 is the deadline for handing in the video. And in my former school, I participated with French as a foreign language. And my students did something about you throw like a girl. Yeah. So this is really, I think this is a really great way to engage the students in these matters and have them be creative and come with their own ideas on showing these matters and trying to break down the stereotypes, whatever they are. Yeah. Then I also want to say a little thing about and this is again from the French. This is from the French geographer. There's been a lot of, I think, in France, observation and awareness of how the public spaces are shared in the school, also in relation to gender. And I'm in the school I am, but the ping pong table was also mostly occupied by the boys. And I think this paper here is really interesting. G stands for boy in France, garçon, and F for fille, girl. And so this is a student who was labeled how is the space of the school playground occupied, and sort of it's mainly the boys who they dominate, or groups. Of course, it's not all boys, but they dominate the center of the schoolyard. And so there's this idea that, yeah, all boys, they play football, and so they are allowed to, they need a lot of space, and the girls and those boys who don't play football, they're sort of squeezed out into the corners or the periphery of playground, and this sends a message to these students that they cannot fill up the same amount of space, and maybe take this learning in their adult life. I don't know what it's like in your countries, but if I walk past a park or a public basketball court somewhere, it's very rarely dominated by and rarely see just a group of girls or women playing. But I think so because of the all this interesting work that's been done in France, there's a lot of focus on it. And so this is from Edith Marie-Jules, who was also doing a talk in eTwinning. So I just read the quotes in red, and it's my translation. So if I did something, you can say it afterwards. But amongst the boys, the biggest fear is to be called a girl, and the girls don't play with the boys because they are considered by them as disqualified, less good, and incapable. So this is one of the reasons why also you have this division that some boys they just fear to be together with the girls, or if they play with the girls, then someone call them a girl. And another quote where she says, reading the red, hence in the school playground, the girls let the boys take up most of the space so they can play football, and the girls stay apart. And these are the reasons for trying to make some interference or changes, so we don't have this division. And I just want to also have the quote from Nicole Labarre, who also did a talk. And because these are screenshots from the first one, you can see she demonstrates how a boy when he throws, he uses all of his shoulder and takes up. You need to take a lot of space when you do that. And then she shows where, like, of course, not all girls throw like that, but more sort of taking up less space with your arm and not using the shoulder. And she says there's nothing wrong with the girls' shoulders, but in their mind they have learned not to take up space, so they're not used to taking up that space. And so this is also a thing that she works with. And actually, as I said before, my students, they did the little video contest about you throw like a girl, because this is often used as an insult. And so I think really in France they have done a lot to change with colors or making things so that not all of the space is occupied by those who play football, and also to have these the mixity, to have boys and girls mixed together when they play. And so these are some of the advice. I just took them together. So one of them is make other rules when playing football so that everyone gets to get the ball. And this is also from Nicole Labarre, who has this thing, pass the ball, so to involve everyone. And also to have days without ball games in the school grounds, and introduce and encourage the pupils to games that are not associated to a specific gender. Because unfortunately, we still associate maybe to do the skip rope as a girl game, but fortunately there are still some games that are not associated with a specific gender. Maybe some hide and seek or other games where you run, and then introduce them to these kind of games. And then, as I already said, to design the school playground so it invites to different kinds of activities, also the more quiet ones. And then another thing, to make observation with the pupils and other teachers to create awareness. So, for instance, this student that made the diagram of the school playground showing who occupies what spaces and how much, this can really open up for good conversations on the sharing of public spaces and how we talk how we learn to share public space. And then another thing, boys who may want to play with girls, but they abstain, they don't, because they fear of how they will be judged. Fortunately, it's not all boys who are like that, but there are interviews with boys that show this. And then another thing, good thing about to have to do is to teach the similarities between genders and differences within a gender, this can encourage more mixed gender friendships. So that, for instance, there are more a boy and a girl might have more in common than two boys, for instance. And then also research show that children who feel secure with other gender children, they like school more. So the less segregated the pupils are, the better. So they feel more comfortable with each other. Yeah. Then, as I also it was said in the beginning of the introduction to this, I don't know in your countries, but in my countries, there has been some fatigue, some tired people being tired. I think the word is fatigue, when you get tired, with talking about gender equality amongst boys. And this is from the Danish Workers' Museum, and they have made this really good material. It's all in Danish, but I think some of the ideas are good, because they have they had this exhibition on women's lives and gender equality, and they felt, the people who received classes from all over Copenhagen, that the boys were sort of resigned, not wanting to join the conversation, or saying, oh, there's too much gender equality and women are taking over and these kind of things. Some of the ideas that they have here was that I'm just share here. So was to investigate different kinds of masculinity with the students, and also to read people like Jordan B. Peterson and Andrew Tate's viewpoints and see, okay, what are they actually saying about men and women and masculinity? And if you don't know about these two people, they have been really spreading a lot of stuff that are quite feminist, how can you say, hostile, and it has been really spread wide out on the internet. And then also talk about men's and boys' challenges with the boys, and a lot of NGOs are around that actually have materials for this. And it could also be to talk about the stereotypes about masculinity with the boys and the male students, and then to introduce other kinds of masculinities to them. And then what they at the museum there, they say they use a democratic pedagogy as a method to structure conversation on gender equality and all the challenges. And the idea is to be open and curious and value all viewpoints from the pupils, even those viewpoints where you might not agree as a teacher, or you think this is too radical, it's too hostile, but really to have, okay, so what made you have this point of view, and really try to be open and curious, and not to immediately close down something because it's not proper, or it's not political correct, as long as, of course, it's not directly insulting anyone. And the idea of the method is about developing each pupil's values and democratic participation, and also their ability to think in alternative to existing values, for instance, very conservative values. Yeah. This is just from this is just to show you that Jordan, who has these very conservative ideas about men and women. And then I want to make it really, I got the Feminist and Cell blog Why is a fantastic film, and you can see it, the full documentary is on YouTube. And it's really interesting. And I got to know this film from the Workers' Museum in Denmark. Because as you can see from the screenshot, this is someone who is in prison, and he's read Bell Hooks, which is a no, what's her name? Yes, Bell Hooks, an American feminist, and so he has become a feminist, and he can see all the cost it has with this macho behavior, that where you end up doing violent things and then you end up in prison. And so the documentary is, you meet all you follow his workshops with the other inmates and hear their conversations and talks about the cost of being violent and being having to be very proud and defend yourself, and how people, okay, he shouldn't talk to me like that, and then if you have a knife or a gun, then some of them suddenly have injured or maybe killed someone because of these values about pride and masculinity. So it's a really interesting, I think it's a really interesting documentary. Yeah, so I'll just move on to the last two things, which is the EU project that my school participated in. And so it was together with universities and teacher training colleges and school in Spain and Portugal. And all the materials are on this page. And as you can see, it's to make school project dedicated to make schools safer and more inclusive by implementing educational intervention based on scientific evidence to prevent gender-based violence. And so these are just screenshots from the homepage. And as you can see, the materials are in Danish, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And there are lots of different PowerPoints. And I'll just say a little bit what it's about in the next slide. So the resources, they are for teacher education and for primary pupils and secondary students and families. And in my school, we only did the secondary student. We tested the material which was developed. We did not have time to invite the families. And I think it's very interesting that you invite families and engage them in conversations, discussions about gender issues, because it's usually quite a delicate matter and really moving into the private sphere. But however, some of these values, they come from the family too, and they come from family, of course, society, and school. But the idea of the project was the prevention of gender-based violence in school, and also understanding the attraction to violence in our culture, that being violent or being sort of aggressive is connected to attraction, to desire, to something. Oh, this is something which is interesting or attractive. And the project is also about knowledge about consent and investigating ideal love. So to have the students really reflect on what is ideal love. Is ideal love really when somebody's trying to control you, for instance? And then the idea is also to make students choose healthy relationships. And this can be friendships, and also be romantic relations. And the idea of the project is also to transform attitudes in primary and secondary students. And then and another thing is to help students become upstanders against violent behavior. And again, this violent behavior can be like bullying or like gender-based violence. And being an upstander is really not easy, because but the point is that if you're passive, just letting things as a student, you don't say anything, you're in a way part of the problem, because you're accepting it and you're not trying to talk, to say something against it, or maybe if you can't do it yourself, at least get a teacher or someone to help. The idea was also to promote new models of masculinity without the dominant or violent attitude, and to give materials that are based on scientific evidence and not just on viewpoints, because a lot of teachers and people in general have ideas about gender, because we all have can have our viewpoints, but to actually have real knowledge, which is scientific evident, is not always the case. But it gives you a stronger place to talk from. I think also when we tested the material with our students together with the colleague, I could say, but what I'm saying now is not just something I invented or some of the Spanish people invented, but this is based on their research. They have talked to many students and made big surveys and interviews, and so it's more scientific evident. And then finally, to use a dialogical method together with the pupils, a bit like what I said before with the Workers' Museum, that you're in dialogue with the students and you hear their viewpoints also. So these are just some extracts from the PowerPoints, and you can find, as again, all these PowerPoints are free. If I read the coercive dominant discourse, this was really a new thing, but I'll just read it up, that this is imposed by the media and also by the peer group, which presents the profiles of men and boys with aggressive attitudes and behavior as more attractive. So as if you have this dominant or a bit aggressive behavior, our culture says in a way this is attractive. And together with the students, we I'll say a bit about that afterwards with the eTwinning. We investigated that, and these are just some PowerPoints from something from the masculinity. So this thing about the dominant masculinity model, where there is this promotion of violence and domination towards women and domination towards other men, and then whereas with the new, what they call the new alternative masculinity, then there is it's non-violent, and it is attractive and confident and strong, and has a strong and brave position against violence. And yeah, and I thought that was very interesting when we had this with our students. One of them said, "Oh, it's like a golden retriever." Apparently, there is this expression, I didn't know, that some boys are called golden retriever because these are really nice, funny, playful type of men. This is one of my favorite quotes from the material. It says, "My parents tell me to marry a nice guy, and I listen to them a lot. Until I have to get married, I spend my time having fun with the bad guys." And we use this quote many times to show to the students, hey, if you again, the scientific evidence and all that, if you as a young person accept that someone is not being nice to you because it's this bad guy behavior, who might be controlling or not treating you in a respectful way. If you as a young person get used to that, you bring that knowledge or that learning into an adult relationship too. So this idea with it's okay to accept this when you're young, and then you have a nice guy later is tricky. And I think it's a very interesting point from the project. And also the trivialization of violence. Everyone does it. It's part of growing up. It will fade away with age. They are humans. So this way of talking about violence is trivializing it instead of really rejecting it. And also they had for the primary students, the Zero Violence Brave Club, also very interesting work with the very young students or pupils. Yeah, but I think I will just move on then, because then I finish off with so this school year I did eTwinning project based on the TeachX evidence material together with an Italian school. So we had it was a bilateral project, just two partners, and our students were around the same age. They're a little more Italian students than Danish. It just ran for 3 months. We didn't have more time. And so the students in each country, they saw the same 3 PowerPoints. And there are more PowerPoints than we saw. And we called them Love, Attraction, and Consent. And so you can say in each month we had a topic that we worked with, and then they would share their viewpoints in the twin space. So this is the screenshot from the twin space that my colleague Michele and we did together with the Italian teacher. And then so we organized, and these are just examples from the forum where the students shared. This was about consent. And these are two conversations. I agree that no means no, but unfortunately sometimes this statement is not respected. And I've heard many stories of people who are forced to do things they do not want, and I'm sorry that in 2025 these things still happen. And then another student replies this: yes, I definitely agree, saying no can sometimes not work in a complicated situation or in another because people do not really care. Now that was very interesting part of the consent, because we learned, yeah, you have to say no, but no is not always respected. Or if you say no under pressure, or you maybe say yes under pressure, where you really wanted to say no. And this is also from the conversation from the students. And I'll just finish off with I will not read all of it, but there you can see one of them talking about a good boy, in my opinion, could be referred to a boy giving golden retriever energy, like being sweet, doing what he's asked to, being playful and serious at the same time. A bad boy could give like a black cat energy, like being mysterious, rebellious, and sometimes a little bit moody. And then these Italian students, they one of the Danish students in this one, she said something about women read the last bit. Women read a lot of books when the story that the man is controlling and being a bit mafia boss, and he's supposed to be attractive, and many women seem to find this attractive. And then the Italians said, well, in their country, mafia boss is not a young, attractive man, but seen as an old, fat, spoiled man. So that was quite interesting to have this conversation too. And actually, this was really a delicate matter to talk about violence, and also talking about violence in relationships, talking about domestic violence. But it was a really nice way to do it, because we had the same PowerPoints to work from. So I think I'll stop here. This is another comment from this Danish student on the PowerPoints. So, but I think I will stop here because now there's 15 minutes left.
Thank you, Marie-Louise. Thank you very much. That was really interesting, and thank you for giving an overview of different strategies to prevent gender stereotypes in education, and also challenges, which was very interesting. You talked about the fatigue. You talked about many elements that represent challenges. So thank you very much. And we have questions from, you can also, if you want, stop sharing, Marie-Louise, so you can see all of us. I mean, just for you also to see the chat and all the nice comments in the chat. But we have a question. Do you think some of the feminist in Cell Block documentary could be used in class? And if so, which age range would it be more appropriate?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I think probably older teenagers. I wouldn't maybe show it to somebody who was 13-year-old, maybe 15 and up, like what you call upper secondary students, and maybe watch the film first, and then see maybe only you maybe want to show this part or this part of the film. But I think it had, and we showed some of it to our students, and some were provoked because they said, oh, all men kill because these are in prison. But then we tried to talk about this thing about pride and trying always having to defend yourself. But so it also provoked some. So, but I would say plus 15.
Thank you, Marie-Louise. I hope this answers Natalie's question. In case you have any more questions, please post them in the chat. We still have some time. We can really use this time to ask Marie-Louise any questions you might have, or even share any thoughts about the topics shared during the webinar. There was also contributions, Marie-Louise, of our participants saying that this is, of course, a sensitive topic in Republic of Moldova, but still teachers need to tackle the topic as often as possible. So the urgency and importance of addressing this topic. And while we wait for our participants in case they have any questions, I wanted to ask if Cecilia wanted to share anything about what we talked about during the webinar, if you would like to add something since your group really addresses this topic. I think your microphone is muted, Cecilia.
Sorry.
No worries.
I really wanted to say thank you very much to Marie-Louise. I found it very interesting and very inspiring. You know, the case in Spain is not, it doesn't seem to be as much as in Moldova, but I still got inspired on some little bits that we might not see at schools, like, or we might not tackle in an appropriate way. So yes, it's very, very interesting and inspiring, and very good materials that you share. So thank you very much for your generosity. Yeah.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Yeah. I encourage all participants to say thank you also to all participants who came today, and invite them to keep an eye on Inclusive Education Future Group, where is more activities coming during the year.
Indeed, so and they have the link also to join the group. So we hope to see them there. And in the meanwhile, we have two other questions. One is really a challenge that a participant encountered. So in the school where I teach, the specific course of study for foreign languages has a percentage of female enrollment of 99%, while the technical course, in the technical course, the percentage is reversed. What else can I do to change this situation? That's a difficult one.
Yeah, it is. And I think if I were to answer, I think as an individual, we can of course we can all do our little parts, but we need the policies and so that support anything that breaks down gender stereotypes. And I think also this thing with the language is still considered being a female subject, and technical is a male subject is really I don't know which country you're from, but it's also a bit mine. But I still think that it seems that there's done more to have women in these STEM. Science, technical, what's it called, engineering, and I forget the M, than there is for boys or men to do the other way, or to come into the female sort of, so to speak, even though language should not have a gender, and like technical should not have gender. But I think really France and Spain, and Sweden are some of the countries who have really done a lot on the policy front. To try to break down gender stereotype, and I think we need policies to support us. And I think, I don't know, also because maybe language, I don't know in your country, but language, if you study language, then it seems, there's not jobs in it. Where if you study technical or natural science things, then there is lots of job waiting for you out there. I think this part plays a role too.
Thank you, Marie-Louise. And then there are other two questions. The first one is, what resources do you suggest for younger students to have 13 years old to sensibilize about the topic? And I think the resources you mentioned were also targeted for this age, right?
Yes, yeah. I think for the project that I attended, there was a material for the primary students too. And I can text the homepage for the project TJX, and because in the for the primary students, I think I did it correctly. For the primary students, it's a lot about friendships and having good, healthy friendships, because that's the first encounter with relations that pupils or children have. It's their friendship, and then later on, they some of them have romantic friendships, relationships. But so if you also have bad relations or not good friendships, I mean, friends who are not really being kind to you, then again you take this bad learning into your adult life or teenage life. So so there is primary stuff in there, I think, which is really good. And I think also the video contest, of course, even though it's in French, but I do believe you can send it in Spanish and then have it translated. You can also, I mean, there's very young, it's down to 3 years old. So yeah.
Thank you. And then we have also a participant asking what are your thoughts about schools which are either for boys or just girls?
That's interesting, because in my own country, this stopped in maybe 30, 40 years ago. So we only have co-educational mixed gender school. I remember when I was doing my teacher training studies, and we interviewed together with another. We interviewed adults who had attended these gender segregated schools. An interesting part was that the man did not want for his boys to be in an all boys school if there was one, whereas the woman would prefer her girl to be, because it would be more the all boys school was seemed more tough place to be, not a healthy place. But sorry, I forgot the main point. What was the question? What would be best?
Yeah, I think the question was more in general, because this participant wrote, what about schools which either for boys or just girls? And if Elena, you want to elaborate on your questions, feel free to do it in the chat. But yeah, it was a general questions, I think, about your opinion or your thoughts about this kind of schools.
I think it's tough. Yeah, I think it's good that there are mixed gender schools, because otherwise it really put people into a box, because then you have an idea when you're a boy you shouldn't be in a certain way or the other way around. So because then, yeah, and also especially with more and more young people, how can you say, not necessarily identifying with the gender they are assigned at birth, and with all this queer or fluid gender, it would be really tough to be in an all girls or all boys school, I think. I remember reading from I can't remember which country, a research. It's not recent research, but if boys were the majority, where the classes were with majority of girls, then they would perform better. But I don't know if this was older research.
Thank you very much for your answer. It's nice to see so many questions and different questions, because it shows really a big interest in this crucial topic. I think there are no questions anymore. I'm just checking now the chat. So I would like to thank you very much, Marie-Louise, for sharing your knowledge with us, for taking the time also to address these questions and inspire other teachers to implement this best practice. And I would like to thank very much Cecilia for organizing this expert talk, this very interesting conversation with Marie-Louise as a resource from her feature group, because it was really useful and inspiring. So thank you very much both again, and thank you for our participants that stayed with us from the beginning to the end, and also engaged with us with very interesting questions. All the materials will be available on the dedicated page on the European School Education platform, and Cecilia will also make them available in the feature group, where you will see also the other activities connected to this webinar, which Cecilia organized and created, and that can give you a space where where you can post your thoughts about what you learned today and about what you will implement in your classroom. So thank you again, everyone, and I wish you all a nice evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
It was
Cecilia.
nice participating. Bye-bye.
Bye, Marie-Louise. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.